this is Freddy with FreddyCanFly, and in today's video, it's a really nice day out, so I figured it would be a good time to show you guys how to calibrate the governor for your HobbyWing speed controller. Of course, if you've been following the series, we're using the Platinum 120 here, but as always, this application works on all of their governors, at least to the best of my knowledge. I apologize if there's a little bit of wind. Hopefully I can make the audio as clear as possible here, but things you'll need, of course, a completely flyable machine. You should have the throttle already calibrated. We're now going to calibrate for the governor. You'll need something to take time with, because it's going to have us do a sample, an RPM sample, so I'm just going to be using my phone. We are going to need the programming box so we can save it for the proper governor mode and also check for readout. And we'll need our radio. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Let's take a look at the pre-setups for the radio first. Alright guys, so as I said, the machine should be completely programmed and safe to operate at this point. So, any other settings that relate to things like your gyro and all your other mixes and whatnot, we don't need to worry about. We need to worry about a couple of things though. Thing one, make sure your throttle hold is active and working. Do some bench tests for that. Throttle curve. So what it's going to have us do is it wants us to run a 50% throttle output I usually do about 15 seconds, and it wants you to do it with an unloaded drivetrain as well, so we don't want any load on the rotor disc. So thing number one is you're going to want to make sure that your normal mode throttle curve just goes 0 and then 50 flat all the way across, okay? So go ahead and do that. 0, 50, 50, 50, 50. Don't worry about anything else for now. If you accidentally hit an idle up switch, of course it will idle up, so either disable those or set those to 50 if you really feel like you need to. We'll go over that in a moment once we get done with calibration. Pitch curve as well. You don't have to do this. You can just put it in hold, put your stick at half and come out of hold and run your 13 to 15 seconds. But I like to do it this way. So of course my idle up pitch curves are linear, so I have full collective range. But in my normal mode, all I do is I just set it to 0, 350s, and 100. That way when I'm moving my stick around, if I did accidentally bump it somewhere, I'm going to remain unloaded on the rotor disc, and it won't affect my readout. So you can do it this way. You can see that the curve that it makes gives me a bit of like a dead band, if you want to call it that, there in the middle. It does tell you this in the manual. So that'll do it for the radio setup. Next, what we need to do is, go ahead and power this down, is we need to get out our programming box, because we're going to need to go ahead and connect that to the machine. Alrighty guys, so this part should be pretty easy and basic. I've connected my multifunction programming box in, and then you provide power to the ESC, but I'm not providing power to the receiver and everything, so I don't have my radio on. If you want to do this with the blades off to feel safer, you can, but it shouldn't power up because there's no signal going in through the Beast X or your flybarless unit. Anywho, once it starts up, okay, we're just going to go ahead and press OK. It's going to connect into our ESC. And if you need to at any time recalibrate the governor, it's this easy to do. If it's mine's already calibrated, so I have to kind of reset it. But so here we go. We're in setting 1, option number 4, which is heli store gov. Okay, so you need to change it. Just hit the value. You'll see we've got fixed wing, linear throttle. We're not going to worry about that one. ELF gov, which to my knowledge, this one you have to just recalibrate each use. So we want to actually store our settings. So select heli store gov, and then we're going to go ahead and click OK. This should reset it for me. Save data, OK. Now what it's going to have me do is it wants to see again a 50% sample for about 15 seconds is what I do, and it's going to use that to calculate what my governor settings are going to be, and I'm going to show you afterwards how to check that as well. So at this point we can go ahead and disconnect our programming box, and I'm going to take the heli out a safe distance and go ahead and power it up, let everything boot up, and I'm going to spool it up for 15 seconds and then we'll check our readout. Alrighty guys, I've set the heli fairly safe distance away just to be safe, and I've got everything set over here. Now I've got my stopwatch ready. I don't know if you guys can see it because of the glare. So I'm going to hit that. Now I'm going to wait because it's got a slower startup speed, right? So I'm going to wait until it actually gets up to RPM, and then I'll go ahead and hit start on that. And with my radio here, so I've got it in hold, but I've got it in normal. So I'm going to go ahead and put myself right at that half stick mark. Again, we gave ourselves that buffer. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm just still going to get mine at 50 in, 50 out. So you can see that on there. And I'm just going to come out of hold. Now, like I said, once it gets up to speed, I'm going to go ahead and start my timer. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's come out of hold. We're shooting for 15 seconds here. And as always, keep your finger on the hold switch at all times, guys. If there's any issues, you want to be able to cap that as soon as possible. So here we go. Okay, I'm going to wait for it to get up to speed. Okay, there we go. It's up to speed. Start my timer. Beautiful. Purrs like a kitten. Just kind of monitor it, make sure everything's looking nice and safe. And we ran a little bit past 15 seconds, but it doesn't hurt, right? The more sample you have, the better. So let's go ahead and just hit throttle hold. Slowly spool down a little bit. And let's go get the machine, let's bring it back on the bench, and we'll see if we got a sample readout. Okay guys, so we got her back on the bench after successfully running our 13 to 15 seconds at zero drive or zero load to try to get our RPM readout. So here's how we're going to check. We've got everything plugged back in. Let's go ahead and connect in back to the ESC. We've got our version, our software, everything. Okay, so now that we're logged in, we're still on heli store gov. I'm going to press the R/P button. I think it's twice, but let's see, once, twice. Here we go, yep. So as long as this screen shows a readout, it means it's sensed or calculated. Now the math and algorithm, if you will, that it lists in the manual, it's pretty complex. Again, I'm not a scientist, but it gives me 108 times 1,000 RPM. So whatever that means is what it means, I guess. That's what I'm going to fly with, essentially. So there's a couple other settings in here that it kind of calculates temperatures, things like that. But yeah, so that's how you'll check. As long as you have a readout right there, then you know that you can go ahead and safely operate and fly the machine. Now, one more thing, though, that I do want to look at. Hang on one sec here. Let me go ahead and... Sorry, guys. Doing this one-handed here. Unplug my machine. Is our radio. Now, in the manual, it gives you a couple of different options as far as... Well, actually, it doesn't really give you a bunch of options. It gives you a base value set up on what you can do with your throttle curves. Now, the way the governor is going to work is it's going to read off of flat curves. And they usually do them in like a 10% increment. I think in the manual it's normal mode 70, idle up 1, or I'm sorry, normal mode 80, idle up 1, 90, and idle up to 100, so 80, 90, 100. My machine's geared a little bit differently, so I'm going to start mine off a little different, but I like to go in that 10% increments, if you will. So, for example, in my normal mode, and I've already tested this, so I know it works. I go, of course, normal, you got to have 0 at the bottom. That way the heli doesn't spool up on you when you plug it in. But I start mine off at 60. So in normal mode, I go 60. And this is just based on my model and its gearing and everything else like that. So let me switch this back. Starting off at 60. This machine can handle low head speed really, really well. So better battery life and everything. And then in my idle one, you'll notice I've got 70. Idle 2 right now, I'm rocking 80. I haven't even tried 90 or 100 yet, and this thing's already screaming like an animal. So I'm pretty comfortable in those ranges for right now. So go back, reset up your throttle curve that way, and then don't forget to fix your pitch curve in normal. Since it is normal mode, right, we're usually flying half stick and above to achieve lift. Anything under half stick is where we're landing. So I don't usually run a full linear in my normal mode. I like to give myself just a little bit of negative pitch, that way as I'm spooling up. I mean, I usually come out of throttle hold anyways, but if I were to spool up slowly for dramatic effect or something, you gotta have a little bit of negative pitch to kind of keep you hugging the ground. And also when you land, if you're gonna kill the power by not using throttle hold, you want to have that little bit of negative as you come down on the throttle to help kind of keep the heli stationary. So I just go 40, 45, 50, and then from half stick and above, I'll just be linear, so 50, 75, 100, boom, Okay, everything's fixed. This machine now is 110% calibrated for the HobbyWing ESC. We've successfully installed it. We've wired it. We've done the throttle calibration. We've now done the ESC calibration. A couple other things I'll get into in a later video is the auto rotation bailout feature setup. Little bit tricky, but really it's not once you understand it. But it lets you change the amount of time between toggling different switches and how fast and how slow the motor will ramp up. That way you guys can practice your autos and everything. So, but other than that, guys, I'm going to plug this bad boy in and go take it out for a flight and test my governor. Thanks so much for watching, guys.